Hello and welcome to Positive Fandom. I am your host, Mmmm. And of course, this is our Sunday brunch show. And we always have on our Sunday brunch show Russ Whitfield from the UK. How are you this morning, Russ?
I'm good, thanks, Aurum. How are you?
I am very well, thank you. It's Super Bowl Sunday here in the US.
I know it's a rainy Sunday afternoon here in the UK.
I know it's a rainy Sunday afternoon here in the UK. I know it's a rainy Sunday afternoon. Sorry,
Oh,
my
we've got
computer
some
was.
echo going on here,
Yeah,
haven't we?
I fixed it. I apologize.
No, no worries.
um, and I had it playing. Sometimes I have the live feed on my phone so I can
Hmm.
see people's responses. Because sometimes even if I can see it in the chat from what I'm looking at, it's not live and I can't respond because the computer won't allow me. So
Sure,
I
sure.
apologize for that. But yes, it is Super Bowl Sunday here in the United States, Russ.
Well, this team, unfortunately, or fortunately for some, didn't get in, did it? Did they? Patriots,
No, no, no.
their own fault for getting rid of Tom Brady, right?
It's the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Los Angeles. I can't remember the team for the
Was it
Los
the
Angeles.
Rams?
Yes,
Raiders.
the Raiders, the LA Raiders. That's
Yeah.
right. And I'm sure there's so many people who are extremely happy about that. We have a bunch of people. Keely Chow is here. Joker Voice is here. Good morning to you guys.
Hey guys.
And thank you for coming on. Of course, thank you, Tom Jr. Jackson, my collaborator and moderator here today, who is also here. So that's great to see him.
The legend that
Um,
is Tom Jr. Jackson.
yes, he is. So it's always good to see him. And let me just make sure I am doing this correctly.
Hmm.
I'm sorry. Just I want to make sure that I muted this so we don't get interrupted. Yeah, I didn't. Sure, I am doing this correctly. I'm sorry. Just I want to make sure that I muted this
No
so we
pressure.
don't get interrupted. Yeah, I didn't, Russ. It's not muted.
No pressure. No pressure.
All right.
Got it.
So, anyway, thank you so much, Russ, as always, for joining me on the
Only
Sunday
a
brunch, which
pleasure.
was your idea, and I so appreciate it. But there's so much to talk about in pop culture this week, Russ.
Holy smoke. Where do we even start? And there's stuff that we spoke about off air, and stuff that I've read between today and yesterday, and it's all kicking off big time. But unlike me, I know you're super organized, so you're gonna drive and I'm gonna wax not lyrically about the topics at hand. So what do we got?
Well, we've got some news about Jean-Claude Van Damme and pretty much his final action movie that's going to be coming out soon. And you sent me this article. I was very surprised to see this. I have to give him credit for even wanting to be involved in a project at this stage. I have to give him a lot of credit for making or taking the initiative to battle past opponents in his final action movie. An article in Deadline, said that he's going to be doing this. It's going to be a movie called What's My Name,
Yeah.
and the film will be, unfortunately, Jean-Claude Van Damme's final film. But boy, Jean-Claude Van Damme has had such an interesting career when it comes to action films, and I have to say, I I don't know what to expect from this film, but it's very interesting that he's deciding to kind of do a final swan song of an action film. I think most people would probably take it easy, but he wants to do action. Um,
Yeah, well, he's super fit. I can't believe I was going on about this last week. Like people like him and Dolph Lundgren and the older sort of generation, or the slightly older generation of action heroes are still sort of carrying the torch. And the very next week, John Claude announces his retirement. What to expect from this movie? Quite a few years ago now, he did a project similar to this because this is kind of based on himself. And it was a movie called JCVD, which was a sort of pseudo biographical story of him. And this actor, i.e., him, is involved in a bank robbery, and everyone's expecting him to be this sort of action hero. And of course, he's not. He's just an actor. But Jean-Claude Van Damme's performance in that was like widely held as his best ever. And I guess the guy was acting for so long at this stage. It's kind of like if you picked up the guitar 20 years ago and you kept at it, you'd get good at it. And I think JCVD was this was him really expressing and showing his talents as an actor. It's quite a cerebral movie. It was quite funny, and it was also quite personal. Like he spoke a lot. The character in the movie spoke a lot about his drug addiction and his infidelities and the things that he'd done wrong. And there's this brilliant monologue in that movie where he really exposes his soul. So the guy can act when he's put under duress. I guess when he if you saw him in Expendables 2, he was the baddie in Expendables 2, and he ate up that scenery like it was a cheeseburger. He was all over it. So this one, they're now saying he is going to go on an odyssey and fight all of his old opponents again. So that's going to be Bolo Young, but Bolo's like 100 years old now, so I don't quite know how that's going to work. But it's going to be Michael Quisi from Kickboxer, and I imagine it'll have a bunch of the guys back from Bloodsport and all that sort of thing. But I think I don't think it's going to be what we expect. I don't think this is going to be particularly funny. I think this is going to be a swan song where he explores the last chapter of his career and how it's affected him and the state of the action industry and all that kind of stuff. So am I really looking forward to it? No, I'm not looking forward to it because it's Jean-Claude Van Damme's last film, and I love Jean-Claude Van Damme. And I can kind of see why he's doing it. He's not doing it because he's unfit. It says in his article, doesn't it? He's basically saying, I've lived in hotel rooms for the past 30 years, and it's had its ups and its downs, and he's had enough. He's in his 60s, and he's not short of a few dollars, is he? So as we were saying last week, the issue that I would have now is who's next. We're really hoping that that people like Lewis Tan can come forward and carry that. Lewis Tan, Amy Johnston, she needs more work. Hollywood, get Amy Johnston front and center, please. Younger people that can work for the next 10, 15 years. Because as much as I love Scott Adkins and want to be him when I grow up, he's in his mid 40s now.
Right.
So look, he's super fit, he looks super good, and all the rest of it. But there doesn't seem to be a Michael Joe White. I think is in his late 40s, certainly in his late 40s, perhaps even in his 50s. Where's the new people? So we've got the Mortal Kombat movies, we've got Andrew Koji coming up, but that Snake Eyes film wasn't that well received. But Koji's in Warrior, the TV show Warrior, which is fantastic. So I hope with the passing of, not even the passing of the torch, with the older guard sort of moving on, we got to find some new people. I think, yeah, Scott Eastwood is another one, but these are all kind of B movie level things at the moment, So shame. Well, au revoir, Jean-Claude, man. Thank you for everything. What can I say? And maybe he'll come back for Expendables 5 or something like that.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be the last time that we see him, but it is food for thought. The idea of him saying that he spent 30 years in hotel rooms, from being on location or in trailers or what have you, it does seem quite dour. And I have a feeling, he didn't look at it all on a, in a pleasurable way. I think he felt that, he kind of could have had a better kind of feeling about it. But that's one of the sacrifices I guess you make when you are filming films on location. I mean, my favorite film of his is Cyborg, and it's not the greatest film in the world, but I'll never forget that film because there's a scene
Gibson
where
Rickenbacker and Fender Tremolo, because they couldn't be bothered to
yes.
think up names for the characters. They just named them after guitars. I know, we'll name them after. What the hell, man? What are you thinking? But yeah, no, it's awesome. And did you know, there is a director's cut of Cyborg, which was released by the director of the film, because Golden Globus absolutely rearranged that film entirely. But Albert
Uh-huh.
Pyun's released his own cut, his director's cut. So if you are a fan and that is your favorite film, highly recommended. It's entirely different. It's a different movie. It's much like Justice League and Zack Snyder's Justice League in terms of how different it actually is. See, I got my Zack Snyder mentioning for the day. Thanks very much.
That's very good to know. I mean, I'll never forget that scene where he has to, the person that he needs to sort of attack is inside of a car, and he has to kick the person through a windshield, like this
Yeah,
impossible kick. And it's like I think in the 80s we had a lot of films where people would say, "Nah, you can't do that," but they did it. Like it was
Mm,
in the film, and he looked great doing it. It didn't really even matter whether it was possible or not. But that film is one of those imagination post-apocalyptic films that we love from that era. And you needed somebody who could kind of pull it off, who had the athleticism to make this seem real, that he could, sort of defeat anybody, even if they were a cyborg. So
quite
um,
so.
I really love that film, and I think that his athleticism was something that we all appreciate. I also think what's interesting is he talks about how in the story, um, you find the actor playing himself, so it's going to be him, and I'm like, okay, you're going to be Jean-Claude Van Damme in your
Hmm.
movie. And then it says, after being left in a coma following a serious car accident, Van Damme wakes up with amnesia, unrecognizable to everyone, including himself. And it's just so unbelievable that he would do something like this, but he had to think of something new and innovative for his film. Although I don't know whether playing yourself in a film, maybe it is new and innovative for action, who knows. But I certainly am going to watch it, because it seems very interesting concept and approach to make a film for nowadays. And it's any action film from him, I'm just going to relish and enjoy it no matter what the outcome of the film is. But I think that he kind of changed, at least in my opinion, action films. And I think a lot of people tried to emulate his abilities, and especially on film, he just looked so good on the camera.
Mm.
So I think that even with the best talent, you don't always look good when you're filming a scene, or but he just like glowed on the screen. um
Well, he's got it. Whatever it is, he's got it. And there were a bunch. There was a guy called Jeff Wincott, he's a fantastic martial artist, and he did a couple of movies. He just doesn't have it. And these guys might even be better actors or better martial art. Well, better martial artists than John Claude Van Damme. But whatever it is, he's got that X factor. When he was young, he was so handsome. I guess he still is. And he looks beautiful, had the body beautiful, and he was doing all the helicopter kicks, which we hadn't really seen before, to be
right,
fair.
right.
And he got that market where the guys wanted to be him, and the girls would go along to the drive-ins and to the cinemas to watch him, because why wouldn't you want to watch? And he became sort of famous for getting his bum out, wasn't he? That was the thing about John Claude Van Damme. He was always like the archetypal butt in the moonlight shot, and of course he had no problems because his butt looks great, and girls loved all of that. So it was a win-win situation on date night.
It certainly was. Everybody got what they wanted, but he really does have a presence on the camera. And I've seen him now in a few productions. I can't remember which ones. And he is older, but he still looks very good. I think I saw him in an interview about a year ago where he was talking perhaps about this film.
Hmm.
And it really was great to see him. He still has the same energy. He still looks very good on camera, in my opinion. And I think that this is going to be something, when we see it, we're not ever going to forget this film. Um,
True say.
yeah. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. I think it's great, the idea that he's sort of, like I said, calling it his swan song. Um, and I also think that he acknowledges the fact that perhaps when he first, or at least he's acknowledging the fact that when he first got into the industry, he didn't know what his career was going to be like. And, it kind of exploded, didn't it?
Yeah, well, it,
Um,
it did. I mean, he basically forced his way in, and he basically almost kicked a cigarette out of Menahem Golan's mouth as he was on his way out of the office. He was there and he was jumping around in the office. He was doing the splits, and the story kind of goes that the Menahem Golan just said, "Jesus, just put him in a movie, just get him out of my hair." And this was his first movie, and Bloodsport, and Golan Globus, Menahem hated it. He just said John Claude Van Damme is poison. This movie is terrible. No one will ever watch this movie. And apparently, the first cut was terrible. And Van Damme himself begged for the chance to re-edit the film. Golden Globers aren't convinced, and they released it in 5 states in America. One of which, luckily for them, was California, and of course, it was an absolute smash hit. And all of a sudden, JC, John Claude's now not poison, and he went off completed his deal with Canon, and then went on to become a megastar.
Yeah, and it's really his life alone is a great story, which probably would have made it kind of a good film if you were looking at it from that point of view
Hmm.
for a swan song. But I'm sure down the line someone's going to make a biography about him in at some part, and
Nice. Sex and
perhaps
drugs and rock and roll, absolutely. I mean, when
yeah,
he was doing what was that, Street Fighter, like that,
that's
he was out of his mind on coke. Like he would disappear for days, and they'd find
yeah.
him with ladies of the night and all that sort of thing. I mean, he was out of control back in the day. So yeah, definitely. I guess he's sort of like martial arts industry's answer to Billy Idol in that way.
Definitely. And, we haven't seen a character like him in a while. So he certainly is someone who definitely deserves to have those sorts of films made out about him. And, perhaps some accolade here as he takes his leave of us. But
Hmm.
I can't wait to see this film. And I think a lot of people are going to be very surprised at how interesting if they don't know anything about him, because I can't assume that everyone knows all the details about Jean-Claude, but he still has that it factor. He still has that shine, and it's going to be great. I did want to say hello to some of the people in the chat. Hey,
Sure.
good morning, Loco Lou, to you. Thank you for joining us this morning, and Joker Voice, Louis Libitz. How are you today? Thank you so much for coming by. And Tape Drive Games, good morning to you for our Sunday brunch this morning. And Dwayne Oldson, good morning to you. Keely Chow, I hope you are well. Everybody out there, thanks for tuning in. And so, Russ,
Hmm.
our next topic has been one of great anxiety to almost everybody who is approaching and reading about it, and that's Amazon's new show that is based on Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. Oh, well, what can I tell you about my opinion on what they're doing with this property? I was struck by a thought about this. Lord of the Rings now seems to be following a very similar trajectory to Star Wars in cinematic terms. We'll come back to the literary side of it in a little bit. But you had these three first movies that are universally hailed as virtually flawless, if not flawless. Certainly, if you're voting, if you've got a vote on trilogy, what's the best cinematic trilogy of all time or the best cinematic piece of all time? Lord of the Rings is going to be up there. It's either going to be number one or number two. I can't think of you obviously you're going to have Star Wars, you're going to have Lord of the Rings and The Godfather, but number three lets The Godfather down. So, but I think Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, you know, Fellowship, Two Towers, and Return, cinematic perfection, never going to be beaten, or not for at least for 50 years or whatever. Then you have the Hobbit trilogy, which came out and was just as lovingly produced and all the rest of it, dragged out over three movies. People were fans were not happy with it, and it was this and it was that, and it was never going to be as good as the Lord of the Rings. Now we fast forward to today, and now we're in Star Wars sequel zone. And I imagine that when this shit show is cancelled after its first season, which I suspect it probably will be, unless they've paid for it uh, for years in advance, which I can't see. People are going to be looking back at The Hobbit, going, we shouldn't have complained. It is so much better than what we've got now. And I think where Peter Jackson got it right and where these people are getting it wrong is that he actively engaged with the fan base and tried to take on the fan base and allay their concerns. I think he was very in with one of the websites, and he even cut down Arwen's part in the movie. I read somewhere because the fans were sort of bent out of shape about it. But now here we are in 2022, where everybody's afraid to say anything in case it offends. And I believe the One Ring.net is now fawning all over this nonsense, where you know other fans, real fans, are absolutely outraged. And the outrage is, of course, because of the fact that this is not now a Tolkien story. This is an Amazon story. that's appropriated the license of Lord of the Rings and is just going to put it all in there. Statements coming out of Amazon are contradictory in and of themselves, in that they're saying that they want to make an immersive fantasy, and then in the next breath they're saying that it's going to address current day politics and situations. Well, how can you have immersive fantasy and address modern issues? It's a complete oxymoron. And the elephant in the room is, of course, the multicultural casting. And I saw it coming. Other YouTube commentators, not that I'm a YouTube commentator, but the real YouTube commentators have all called it out straight away. If you come along and have an issue with this, the instant response is you're racist, you're racist, you're racist. No, you're not. You've got to respect the law. And now all of a sudden, respecting the law has become catchword from its opponents as racism. But here's the thing: Tolkien himself said that England itself, apart from King Arthur, didn't really have a mythic history like Greece or Rome. And he wanted to give the English people that mythic history. Well, at that time, that in England, Anglo-Saxon time, post-Roman, pre-Renaissance era, England was predominantly 99.9999999% white people. That's why in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings, it's a white movie. It's a whitewash movie. Why? Because that's the book that they were following. Now you're trying to inject your identity politics into it. Now you this isn't Lord of the Rings. So if you don't want to make Lord of the Rings, make Game of Thrones and do your own fantasy thing. Nobody has a problem with that. I loved Game of Thrones. Everybody loved it. Multicultural as you like. Brilliant. Awesome. Make a new fantasy show. But as soon as you start messing with a property, a literary property now we're talking about, as beloved as Lord of the Rings, you walk, there is no bridge that is going to go over those troubled waters. This show is going to fail hard. I think the fans are turning away from it en masse. I think I just by your own yardstick, if you go and look at the YouTube comments, you've got one person defending it, 20 people slating it. You go onto another thread, one person defending it, 20 people slating it. I can't see it succeeding at all. My daughter said to me, "Are you going to rage watch?" I said, "No, I don't. I don't think so. It's not for me. You know, it's basically, dare I say, this is supposed to be an English myth, and now, we're culturally appropriating the myths of England, and we're going to make them all different and diverse, and suddenly Elrond's a fucking activist, and it's just, yeah. What do you think? I'm not excited. Put it that way.
Well, of course, the Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson films are iconic, and I think that they're as big of a deal as they're so impactful on our society right now that they were sort of like the modern version, even though it was not a historical story, let's say, about historical figures, they were as impactful as Ben-Hur or those films that we've watched from old time Hollywood in
Mm.
their heyday during the studio system, when they had these brilliant actors who starred in these historically significant roles. That's how impactful Lord of the Rings has really become for me, and I think for a lot of people. And I think the reason why is because they just were so beautifully done. And we know that it's based on it's fiction. We know that this was not really something that we were surprised by. What surprised me the most about what Peter Jackson was able to do is just how beautifully he did it. He created the world. It was absolutely perfect, Russ.
Mm.
Everything looked beautiful, and it did feel like a different place. So, I think that he created it in a respectful manner to the material. And, absolutely nothing he did in his recreation and adaptation of the books was meant to offend or hurt anybody. Now, when he and another thing that he did that I really liked is that he made these super long extended cuts, and I thought to myself, yeah, I'll watch a 6-hour version of the first movie and a 6-hour version. Maybe it's not 6 hours, but you know what I mean. I would watch it, and we still watch these extended cuts of films that were made over 20 years ago.
Over and above the theatrical cuts, right?
Yes,
You
yes,
if you've got the original DVD and you've got the super cut, you never ever go, oh, it's a bit too long. No, you're there, you're in it
yes.
because they exist to be immersive.
Yes, and you can just watch, you can just keep them on, just have them playing. And even despite the fact that they were cut down to a theatrical version, when you watch these extended cuts, they don't feel like they were out of place or anything in it should have been cut out. None of that. Not what you would normally see in an extended cut sometimes, where you would say, yeah, maybe that scene wasn't needed. No, nothing like that in any of the extended versions. It feels very natural. If you feel like you're getting more of the story. And, I have done a marathon where I just watched it the entire day, all the extended cuts. It was Lord of the Rings day. And then, maybe I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll do that again next week, because it was so enjoyable.
Mm.
And, to be able to do something like that is really remarkable. And I'm still marveling over it, 20 something years later. The other thing I was going to say is, in regards to the Hobbit series,
Mhm.
the three films with that, I love Martin Freeman. I love him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So as soon as I heard he was going to be in it, nothing else mattered to me. He was going to be starring in it, and that's all I cared about. And I still love it. I will watch those films. I admit that they may not be the same level of, let's say, the original trilogy for Lord of the Rings, but it doesn't matter to me. I still have such a good feeling from
Yeah.
the originals that when I watch The Hobbit, I still have that feeling from it. And that's something that I think, if your film can resonate into other films in this manner, it is also a rare accomplishment. I think Hollywood is trying to do that. They're trying to get the, help and encourage that great feeling that you get from that original film and recreate it. And perhaps it was not perfect in The Hobbit, but for me, it worked. And I didn't feel that anything was, kind of ruined or destroyed. I know people
No.
said that they felt it was drawn out and that it could have just been one film, but for me, I said, no, give me more of this world. I always want to see more of this. Martin Freeman, was just so wonderful in it. As usual, he very rarely gives a poor performance, and so I was just completely elated that they were even going to attempt to do that.
What about
And
Lee Pace? He was
I
the
love Lee
Don
Pace.
in that movie. He's just what you imagine, right? That
Yes.
that guy nails arrogant elf. He was so cool. I loved that guy. I thought he was brilliant in that. But yeah, I love him too. I'm not slagging him off. I mean, I think, as I was just saying, I think after this, whatever it's going to be on Amazon, people are going to look back at The Hobbit and go, you know what? A lot of people gave that trilogy a real kicking, and I think, you don't know what you've got until it's gone. I think in this case, and look, I could be completely wrong, and this could be the greatest show of all time, but I don't think so. And
Well,
sorry.
no, there's more. I have more. I know I'm getting a little long-winded because I get
Mm,
very passionate about
absolutely.
these films because of how beautifully they were done. And as I said, The Hobbit was not quite, up to many people's standards. For me, it was brilliant. I still love that film. I still love seeing Martin Freeman, and Lee Pace, as you mentioned, plus many, many others. The same level of effort I felt was put into the production value of those films.
Mm,
So I loved seeing that as well. And you go back to the same places more or less, or maybe not the same places, but the house is the same place where he lives. That was incredibly important to see that, where the village is still the same. And I felt that continuity carried itself from one trio of films to the next. So that was very important to do that, on that regard. But um so I was expecting, let's say, because we've had this level of excellence, and it was over 20 years ago, they've made different advancements by now. They've had different technology that's come into play. We know a little bit more about how to recreate these things. People are making, it inspired a lot of movie makers to make films, fantasy films, get into this. I was expecting a certain level of quality from a series that has spent what how many hundreds of millions of dollars
it's getting on
on
for a
this
billion, but
series?
half a billion was to get the rights.
Right.
I think it was
And
four hundred and
then,
fifty million, to get the rights.
right. And so they have money to burn because they wouldn't have done this if they didn't have the money to do it. They probably have an incredibly large budget. I was expecting the same level of excellence when it came to costume design, character development, story, all this sort of stuff. Um, and I was quite surprised to see some of the wardrobe choices that they made for this series, because honestly, Russ, it doesn't look like Lord of the Rings, because we have this established history of what, 50, 60 hours worth of footage of what Lord of the Rings is to, let's say, a Lord of the Rings fan.
Hmm.
And when you and the books, the descriptions of characters in the books. So when you look at what they've produced so far in whether it be stills, pictures of the costumes and the characters don't look like Lord of the Rings to me. It looks more like The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe from C.S. Lewis. Some of
Hmm.
the designs don't match the Tolkien era ideal to me.
No,
So, like, at least when I'm looking at these characters, I'm just like, that's not Lord of the Rings. It is a fantasy film. It is a fantasy show, but the design, the production design, the costume design does not look like Lord of the Rings to me. Um, and you've seen a few of the design elements from the show, right, Russ?
hmm
You've seen it.
yes, I have.
Um, what did you think that any of the designs, even to recreate a story that's supposed to be Lord of the Rings, looks like a Lord of the Rings show? Does it
Not
have
to
that
me. No, I
feel?
was instantly reminded of the the hilarious shitfest that was the Sword of Shannara TV show, which I loved. I thought it was horrendous. It was awful. It was nothing like the books at all. Everything looked crap and it was poorly acted. But there was a joie de vivre about the Shannara show that I just couldn't help but like. And the budget wasn't huge, and this sort of it just gave me Shannara vibes, and it kind of looked cheap. Not cheap. It just looked tacky is what it looked like to me. And I just think if you've got those hundreds of millions and you want to tell a story that's both immersive yet somehow embraces current politics of today, then perhaps you should be making your own and not trying to appropriate Tolkien to do it. And I'm sure that if Amazon had announced we're going to spend $1 billion on our era's Game of Thrones. The Game of Thrones was 10 years in the making, and it went to pants at the end, as we all know. Amazon step in and go, no, we're going to create a new fantasy world, or we're going to base it off a set of modern books, whatever we're going to do. But just this is it's so beloved by millions and millions and millions of people, and yet you come in, and one of the statement was, well, we're going to write the novel that Tolkien never could. Oh, are you now? Oh, well, this I can't wait to see. Now you're better than Tolkien. I mean, I know it wasn't taken; it's probably taken out of context, but still, I don't know, man. It's such a touchy subject. When you've got that history. I mean, I think it was written 1930 something. I can't actually remember what year Lord of the Rings came out, but it's certainly getting on for nearly 100 years ago now, and it's been beloved since it came out. And what? Why? Just why Lord of the Rings? Why not your own? Why not another book that fits more into the mold and wants to tell the story that you want to tell? That's the point, because I'm sure fantasy fans would be eating up. Lord of the Rings fans would be eating it up. They're, oh, this is great. We love this new show. But you take their thing, and then you twist it, and you put your modern day politics in it, and your Amazon diversity quota all over it. It's not Lord of the Rings anymore. It's just the title Lord of the Rings with a show that has no bearing on it whatsoever.
Yeah, it is kind of disturbing, Russ. And in regards to it now, talking about just the idea of what type of content are we going to be getting from this show,
Mm,
because this is something that really has a lot of people concerned, in the sense of you know being able to. It wasn't easy to adapt those films that Peter did. That was not an easy feat.
hmm
That might be considered his magnum opus of films, or anyone's for that matter.
Anyone's.
Because there was so much that went into that. And we have to acknowledge the effort that he put into it, the beauty that he created for all of us that we're still enjoying today. You can put on any one of those films and you can still enjoy the fantasy of Lord of the Rings today, and it doesn't feel dated, it doesn't feel odd or anything like that. The thing that I was going to say is that I noticed that in Peter Jackson's portrayal of many of the Elven characters, that they had kind of like a certain glow to them, as a character. And so that was something that I really liked because it kind of set them apart. It distinguished them as a significant character. Perhaps they have a certain realm. There's all sorts of details about it that I'm not going to go into too far. But the point is that special attention was made to make them look as a very specific way. And also, from what I have seen and read about those characters in the stories, that sexual desires are things that they've kind of like put up on, on the back burner for now, because
Hmm.
once they've sort of overcome the desire to do that after, let's say, several hundred years, maybe of partaking in that, then they focus on something else. And that's perfectly, fine. I'm not saying that they're sexless creatures. What I'm saying is, perhaps they won't be doing that. And that's not something that they focus on because they've lived for so long. And from what I understand, this new version of this story that's loosely based on Lord of the Rings is going to be sort of like delving into sexual natures of these individuals, which normally I would be fine with, but it doesn't feel right, in my opinion, for this story to be adapted this way. Now, I think that Peter Jackson purposefully stayed away from that in the stories. And there was a reason, because that wasn't part of Tolkien's vision. We've talked about, why a particular creator has a vision for his creation. And sometimes it includes more sexual activity than others. But this particular one was mostly a fantasy based, good versus evil style story, in addition to having incredible amounts of lore that have nothing to do with sexual pleasures, desires, carnal pleasures. There are other, series that have that sort of thing. But this one really did not have a focus on, trying to, include that in part of what was going on. And that was the creator's decision. So I'm kind of surprised at the idea that that may be something that they want to incorporate into this story. But the idea that they also want to incorporate modern problems or, modern concerns, it just seems so misplaced. And what on earth does it have to do with the lore? Like, what does the lore have to do with modern problems?
Nothing, literally nothing. And I think this is what people are. It's certainly look, and I'm not a huge fan. My daughter said to me, I can't wait to see what Just Some Guy is going to do about this, because that guy, when he now sees this, his explosion of fury is going to be epic. And like the sort of internet's quiet, like there is nothing from Just Some Guy, which means that the rant that follows this is going to be beyond the pale, I am sure. It's not Lord of the Rings, Oren. That's the point. And if you're going to do Lord of the Rings, do it in a pure fashion.
Right.
Otherwise don't do it. Do your own thing. You're Amazon. You've got more money than God. You can make something that addresses everything that you want to address, everything that you want to put front and center. Do it. And there are a million and one writers out there that could do it for you. That will follow your game plan, that will do as you've told them to do. But doing this, I I don't fear. I think it's going to flop, and I think it's going to fail hard. And I think that Amazon will cover it up and they'll push on with it, perhaps. But as I say, just by the evidence of my own eyes, when you're looking at the internet conversations about it, everyone is saying the same thing. Why? This isn't Tolkien. What the hell are you doing? Why bother?
Yeah, and some of the chat are saying, well, good morning to you, Carlos A. Smith. And Dwayne Olson says, excellent point, Russ. The Hobbit will be rescued by how bad Amazon of the Rings is. And Tom Jr. Jackson says, I have all the Lord of the Rings extended edition and the Hobbit extended edition 3D. And
Mhm.
Eric Gant, thank you so much for subscribing to the channel. Also, Tobor is here. Hi, Tobor. Good
Hey,
morning to you. And also we have Bloodsport 1. Hi, folks.
hey, Bloodsport.
Welcome to the channel this morning. Also, we have a comment from Dwayne Olson who says, Why Lord of the Rings? Because the message is about killing someone else's beloved icons and wearing those conquered icons as skin suits. This is a religious iconoclasm. And I've heard people mention that. Carlos A. Smith says the Fellowship was written in July 29th, 1954.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much. And Carl also goes on to say this the Silmarillion. I don't know why I can't pronounce that, but I know that that's what The Hobbit was based on as well. September 15th, 1977. And also, so people are have some very interesting reactions to this, Russ. I also have to wonder, like I said, when I looked at the production photographs of what I was seeing, and there was a woman who plays, is it Galadriel? Um,
Galadriel.
and she's wearing armor, and I looked at the outfit, and I can't pull it up, but the armor does not look like armor from any movie I've ever seen. It looks like a Jean-Paul Gaultier bustier,
Mm,
the designer. And if you remove the arms, it looks like she's about to walk down the runway in an Oscar show or something. It doesn't look like actual armor of any kind. It just looks like a dress, like a bodice or something. And I'm like, that's not armor. That's not even like leather armor. Sometimes they would have a leather style
hmm
armor. I said, I don't know what that is. And
Well, it's
also
supposed to be plate mail, isn't it? It's supposed to, sorry, it's supposed to be plate armor, and I imagine the excuse is going to be crafted by the finest elven smiths. It's as light as silk, yet somehow is amazingly strong. I mean, look, man, I don't know. It's be careful what you wish for. As I say, as I keep going back to this Star Wars comparison, you know, could you ever imagine a world after the prequel trilogy come out, where we'd have this world where we had three new films that were going to have Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, and Han Solo in it? And not only were we going to have that, we were going to have TV shows coming out of our ears, and they were all going to be set in Star Wars. We wouldn't have believed it. And oh my god, it's all happening, and then oh, and it's mostly crap, and it's dividing the fan base, and your guy, Mr. Fett, is not even in his own show, and now it's a disaster, right? And well, perhaps not a disaster, but this I feel is going down the same road. It's like we've always wanted this huge thing that would follow on. What could we have? And now we've got it, and virtually everybody's disappointed, except of course, apart from the usual chorus of people who probably won't even bother to watch it. They've just jumped on the diversity bus, and then they know nothing about Lord of the Rings. They don't care about Lord of the Rings. They only care about, as I think it was Dwayne said, the message. That's all they care about, and then they'll move on to the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely disturbing, especially the care that they did take in making the original series, along with the Hobbit series. Excuse me, so realistic. And as I said, that I'm so sorry, my
No.
throat is that. Especially since they went to so much effort to making the original series look so beautiful and such attention to detail, that when you look at some of these costumes, Russ,
Hmm.
it's terribly disappointing. I mean, the actors look beautiful. They're beautiful looking people, but
Of
the
course.
costumes are just such a letdown. And for me, the costumes are such an integral part of a show. Louis Libetz is here today. Hello. And Darren Hoyt. Darren Hoyt says, all we want is some quality movies, not woke identify garbage inserted. And we also have the Basco Scenario who's here. Along with Paul from Long Beach, here joining us this morning. Good morning to you, everybody. The final thing that I was going to say, Russ, is that when I noticed that that main character, Hadriel, didn't have like the right armor, she doesn't have the right, costuming. I almost wondered to myself, clearly what they were designing was something that they wanted to feel more modern. In other words, they decided to make a costume, in my opinion. When I look at a costume like that, I say, oh, that's somewhat more of a modern look. It doesn't look like it's from a different time, a different era. And this is part of the plan. to incorporate more modern looking elements, including, into the costume design, which I find to be, somewhat ridiculous. You're telling a story of ancient that's supposed to be about, an ancient story, but you're giving them modern looking costumes. It just doesn't
in your
make
immersive fantasy.
yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Right from the get-go, I was very concerned about it in that regard. And also, there were some other elves in the story, and I could be wrong. They may not be elves, but um, even their costumes were not what I would consider. They really just looked like a robe that perhaps a monk would wear.
Mm.
And we know that that's just not realistic in this particular series. So, I'm hoping that it won't be too drastic for all of the characters. Costume design is so important in a production like this, and Peter Jackson knew it, and we all could see that. We all could see the effort he put into that. So that's something that I am also very concerned with, just personally, because so much of our enjoyment is into enjoying what these things look like. We're invested in it because we want to see those beautiful costumes in addition to the story and the setting as well. So so that was something that I was not happy with right from the get-go, Russ. And
Mm.
it's going to take quite a bit of convincing for me to see a design in that show that it's going to turn my opinion around about it, just from the design factor alone.
Where's the trailer? This
The
film,
trailer,
this yeah, this thing's been in production for for God knows how long, and a lot of people that I watch on YouTube have commented on this. This is often a worrying sign when you're getting kind of closer and closer and closer to the release date, and you've seen absolutely nothing. They're not prepared to show their wares because they're now starting to realize that they may well have just spent close on $1 billion on a complete turkey that nobody wants. So you release that literally releasing the trailer is going to be like releasing the Kraken or releasing the Genie. Once it's out, once the trailer's out, and we can see, look, the lady that's playing Galadriel, whose name is I'm blanking. She's a fantastic actor. She was
yes.
in more. Oh God, I can't remember the name of the film. I'm sorry, I'm getting old. Anyway, she's brilliant. I'm sure her performance will be great. But once that trailer's out there and we can see what this is going to be, what the feel of it is, well, then there's no going back, is there? People are either going to tune in or they're not. And I fear that Amazon fear that they've seen the reaction on social media. They've seen what Tolkien scholars are saying, because the one guy, the one Tolkien scholar that was on it, who's a renowned scholar, he was with Jackson all the way through those movies. He did an interview with a German magazine and said, well, they're not really doing this and they are going to be doing that. And it's not quite this. Fired, which pissed off the Lord of the Rings nuts greatly. So yeah, it almost seems like this is not your Lord of the Rings anymore, fans. It's now everybody else's Lord of the Rings, apart from the people that have loved it and grown up with it their whole lives. That includes old people like me and those old movies now that are 20 years old. My daughter's grown up with those ones. That's her Lord of the Rings. No, that's all rubbish. Now we're going to have this shit. Excuse me for swearing on your channel, which I do more frequently than I
it's
should.
It's okay. And everybody has passion, are passionate about different things. You know, uh, Paul in Long Beach says happy Super Bowl Sunday. Happy Super Bowl Sunday to you, Paul. Carlos A. Smith says the difference between film and TV look is folks who respected the material. In the latest interview, the producers of the TV show did not show any respect for the lore or the work of Tolkien. And the Basco scenario says, I will be catching that for sure. Curious to see what we're going to get from that studio. Magus of Vicanti, thank you for joining us, Magus of Vicanti. You have to understand that for these creators, history began in 2010. Yeah, perhaps.
Yeah.
And Paul from Long Beach says, well, that's positive. Well, we're certainly not being negative about it. We're certainly looking at the show from a critical point of view, Paul. And, we don't use the H word, which is the word hate. And, I'm going to watch it, and I'm hoping that it will turn out to be something amazing. But I am concerned because those costumes don't look right for the period. And, I've spoken to some other friends I know who work on costumes, and they can't figure out what costumes these are. And that's a little disturbing for the costume department not to be able to quite capture a particular time period or even create something that has a more cohesive feel. So,
Mm.
of course, for someone like me who loves costumes, I'm going to be looking at that, and I have to go ahead and look at that from a critical point of view. But
Sorry, who
certainly,
raised that? Who raised that? Was that who said it? Well, that's positive. Was that Paul?
yes,
Yeah,
from
no. I think he raises a good point. This is positive fandom, and we kind of in between a little bit of a rock and a hard place here because we want to keep up to date with the news, and we have to be honest about what it is that we're seeing, and we do want to be positive. I wanted this to be great. I just can't see it being great for all of the reasons that we've discussed. I'd like nothing more for them to have brought out this amazing Lord of the Rings thing, and maybe it will be, but the reticence is already there because, as I've said over and over, it's not Lord of the Rings, and I can't find find it within myself to try and be enthusiastic about something that literally seems to be sticking up a middle finger at the entire fan base, the entire lore of this. It's almost like they're going out of their way to be insulting, and lots of different properties seem to be doing this lately. So yeah, it is a good point, and maybe I should have wound my neck in there a little bit, Paul. But it means a lot to me. I've read those books when I was 11 years old, and that was like 1,000 years ago now, man. And I've loved that my whole life. I'm not a huge scholar of it, and just to see what the intent is of this has upset me. But yeah, no, good point.
Yes, and thank you, Paul. Like I said, this is positive fandom. I am going to say positive on this. I certainly am not going to say that that we don't use the H word, which is hate, on this channel. We're just looking at this and trying to figure out, if it really looks like Lord of the Rings. And when I look at it, I'm like, it doesn't look like that. So, that's something to think about when they decide to use a title from an IP that we know. If it doesn't look like it, it can, kind of make you wonder what they're going to provide to us. So
Hmm.
that's definitely something that we're exploring. The other thing I was going to say is you had mentioned, and this is the last point, you had mentioned, Russ, just some guy, and he had mentioned that there were many fans who had criticized what the original Lord of the Ring characters actually physical appearance looked like, and that had been quite a conversation starter, and had kind of like gotten a lot of buzz on other social media platforms, and this is something that didn't really deserve to be vilified that way. As I said, Peter Jackson's adaptation was something that was spectacular, and the interpretations of what the characters look like, will differ from individual to individual. But he certainly didn't mean any malice by any of his creations there,
No,
and
he was
I
just
think
he was
that
just
should
following the book.
he was, and in regards to let's say the inspiration for this new TV series, I wonder if the new TV series is also going to get the same criticism that Peter Jackson received in regards to the appearance of the characters as well. But we certainly are not accusing anybody of trying to make anyone feel bad or anything like that. We just want to see if it is Lord of the Rings. We are certainly expecting something similar to what Tolkien has created, and those costumes, I just hope that they become they improve those somehow. And Bloodsport once says the costume look is medieval futuristic.
Yeah. I can't see
So,
the comments. I don't know why I can't see them coming up.
well, I'm looking at a live feed. Yeah, you can see them if if you exit full screen,
I'm not on full
and
screen.
you're not on full screen, and
No,
you can see where it says you can see the StreamYard and everything that I can see.
no. Oh, here, let me see. Private chat comments. Ah, there we go. I've got them. Thanks, RM. You see, click of a button. I should have listened to you in the first place.
With the click of a button. It sounds like something out of a musical that someone's going to make. So let's go to our next topic, Russ.
Hmm.
Blade Runner 2099 live action sequel series from Ridley Scott, Silka Louisa, and Alcon in the works at Amazon Studios.
Hmm. So
Yes.
let's go from giving Amazon a coating to maybe giving them a little bit of praise over here. So why am who doesn't love Blade Runner, the first one? Who doesn't love the second one? To be fair, 2049, may not have done well at the box office, but or as well as it could have, but it was a beautiful looking film, stunning, stunning, stunning. Everything about it was great. And now we've got Ridley coming back to the fore to talk about androids, which is great for me as a massive fan of Aliens and Alien and all that stuff. I hope Ridley just leaves that franchise alone now, because ever since Prometheus came out, his focus is obviously on this AI. What does it mean to be human stuff that was really the nexus of Blade Runner. Okay, so now with Ridley, with that being his obsession at the moment, in his later years he's become quite hit or miss, I think, with his movies. But you have to kind of hope with him returning to his old stomping ground, with the subject matter that he wants to follow. He did this with that Raised by Wolves, and I don't know how successful that particular show was, but I think the brand value of Blade Runner is going to bring old soaks like me back into the fore. I'm very, very excited about this. Now, this is something that, you know, I think Amazon is a great place for, because they did Altered Carbon, which I thought was pretty good.
I liked
Um,
Altered Carbon. Yeah, I liked
yeah,
it,
it was pretty
especially
good.
season one.
Yes, yes, that was awesome. So yeah, I'm kind of excited. I just think with Ridley's obsession with AI and all that kind of stuff, it's the perfect channel, perfect guy to be show running it, and let's hope it delivers what because that world is huge. It goes beyond chasing robots around, doesn't it? It's this whole world that you can explore of, what's that program that's been on for millions of years, set in New York, cop show, Mariska Hargitay, Law and Order. You could have like
Yes.
Law and Order in Blade Runner world, and it would still be great, because you'd have all the problems and things about the future world that I don't have to deal with in Law and Order. You do a cop show like that, it would be sick. You could do so many things in that grungy future of, was it 3 4 years ago, 2018, 2019, when it was originally set. Yeah, that's 2099, so we've got a little bit to go, but I'm really, really excited. Um and here's the thing: if they're going to do The Message, well, that's the perfect place to do it, because no one's going to be bent out of shape about that, because why would they? It's got no 100-year law history. They can tell the story that they want to tell. We've got one short story and two movies and a couple of and an anime, and maybe a couple of animes. That's it. It's open season on this world, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, and that's very interesting because I have actually no problem with a message. My problem has just been that I've noticed that sometimes they'll have a message and the story is not great. And
But isn't
if
that
the
isn't that
story
what
is
Robert Meyer Burnett says? Isn't it? It's what he says all the time. But go
Well,
ahead.
if the story is great and then you have a message, that's fine. They can tell a message. The message, you can take it or leave it. It doesn't matter if that's there. But
Yeah.
when the story is lacking, that's when it becomes a problem. There's nothing to really hold on to. And we certainly don't want to see that happen with Blade Runner, which for many of us was maybe the introductory film that brought us into this genre of that we love. And some of the comments in the chat are saying there's some more people who've joined us. Mikey Lito, good morning,
Hey,
Mikey
Mikey
Lito.
Leo.
Thank you for joining the show. And he says, good morning. Hello, and Russ. I've been watching on the big screen, and I've jumped in the chat to say happy Super Bowl Sunday to my friend at Paul at Long Beach. Hey, happy Super Bowl Sunday to you, Mikey Lito. And Blood Sports one says, please click the like button. Thank you so much. Carlos Smith says the costumes will make or break the series, and the writing is already questionable. See, for me, I do honestly feel that way when it comes to the writing. And also, Rogue Thinker is not that excited. Darren Hoyt, hello, Darren, says Is that Blade Runner statement a real deal? And it seems so. Deadline has reported, this is
Mm.
Deadline's words, Darren, from Deadline exclusive. The replicants are heading to the small screen as Amazon Studios has put a live action series set in the Blade Runner universe into development. Ridley Scott, who directed the original 1982 Blade Runner movie, is executive producing the series Blade Runner 2099, a follow-up feature to the feature film sequel Blade Runner 2049, which was released in 2017 and directed by Denis Villeneuve. So yes, it is the real deal. But Rogue Thinker is not that excited about it. He's not a fan of the second Blade Runner, too much orange and too little plot. Yeah, that's a good point.
But
Honestly,
was it? Sorry,
no, no,
RM.
no, 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 it's okay. I just want to get in some of these other people.
Mm.
And thank you. Good morning to you too, Rogue Thinker. And just want to make sure I got everyone who joined in just now. And Tobor says that he actually liked Blade Runner 2049. And also, so that's very interesting. I did want to say to what were you trying to say just a few moments ago before I cut you off,
That's
Russ?
okay. It was when he, I think it was Rogue said that too much orange, not enough plot. I kind of think that was the not if not the point, but that was more about immersion in that world. I think yeah, the story was okay, but that was one of those ones you had to go and see in the cinema and be bowled over by the Zimmer soundtrack and just sit there looking at all this amazing stuff and follow this tragic story along. But for me, that was certainly style over substance. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it. Did they need to make a sequel? I think you said earlier on, Rogue. That's too long between sequels. Did it really need it? No, it probably didn't. And maybe that's why it wasn't so successful at the box office, because it was just for people that loved that world, loved that universe, and it delivered all of that stuff in absolute spades. Loads of they changed the visuals. The rain went and the orange came in, but the dreamy synths and all of that stuff was all back there. And as a child of the 80s, I thought, yeah, we really thought the world was going to be like that. So, and it didn't turn out that way, but yeah, loved it.
And we also have another comment. Well, Carlos Smith says, yes, this is the same director who did the revised Dune 2021, who did Blade Runner 2049
Mm.
as well. The article says that Ridley Scott may actually direct the series, but we don't know. And Magus of Vicanti says, is this going to be a rehash of the Total Recall series on Showtime? Where they took a whole bunch of Philip K. Dick worlds and tried to synthesize them into the we can't remember it for wholesale one. I honestly don't know. I'm not sure. I really have to. Do you know, Russ?
No, I don't know. I mean, we can remember it for you. Wholesale was the Dick story that they based the Total Recall on, and to my knowledge, and I know this is a sin. I've not actually read the original short story. Maybe I did when I was a kid, but it was a long time ago. But the Arnie movie bears absolutely no resemblance to the story, much in the same way that Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep doesn't bear much of a resemblance to Blade Runner. But it's the movies were still cool, especially I love Total Recall, but not so much the remake.
Yes. And so, this is something to think about. I think that this is going to be a very interesting series. Ridley Scott has gotten a lot of flack recently for, as you probably mentioned it, his Prometheus films with Alien, and a lot of fans were not happy with how those things went down, and even some of his comments. I mean, how can you ignore everybody's conversations about whether or not the lead character is a replicant? This is a debate that just goes on and on and on, even though Scott has said no. And I think that the fact that we're even debating about this film for so many years later shows the passion that it's created in so many of the fans for Blade Runner. So we have to watch this one really closely.
Yeah, I'm
um,
excited for it. One of the things I was thinking about Ridley actually. I think one of the things that baffles him and has baffled him and continues to baffle to this day, is that he's just a bloke doing a job, and he's trying to make the best film that he can. And I think it's sort of lost on him how passionate people get about things that have been created. So for him, when he just decides that he's going to tell us that the alien was now created by an android 5 minutes before the original Alien film, when we've always believed it was like unknowable terror, now we've got an answer. It's like, no, we don't want that, man. But he's like, well, what are you upset about? I just think I think it baffles him why we get so passionate about this stuff, because to him it seems seemingly it's an immersive job, but it's just a job at the end of the day.
Yeah, it really is. And, I've often heard a lot of people who work in Hollywood say that, don't let them know that you're fans of the IP,
Mm,
because they don't really understand, or perhaps are looking at it from they can't from the same point of view that we as sort of, fanboys, so to speak, or fangirls are looking at it. I think that it's something to think about. Eric Gant, who's here, hello, Eric Gant, says, I love the setting of Blade Runner. A series could be awesome if the writing is solid. Hell, I can't read this. Good storytelling made me a fan of Peacemaker series, something I didn't think would be possible. I am certainly, I have to agree with that. I'm a fan of Peacemaker. I'm not a fan of everything in it, but I certainly am a fan of the writing, and it's grabbed my attention. I'm never bored with that show ever. There's nothing in it that is boring. I certainly have to say that Peacemaker has been a pleasant surprise for me, and I really just didn't know what they were going to do with Peacemaker, and I'm so glad that they went down the route that they did. Now, Russ, you've been watching Peacemaker, haven't you?
I have been watching Peacemaker, yes.
And what is your opinion of that show, if you don't mind
I
me asking?
absolutely love Peacemaker. They have completely smashed that out of the park so hard that that particular baseball or cricket ball is now somewhere past Saturn. I cannot praise that show highly enough. It is the perfect antidote to much of what's going on in entertainment at the moment. It's thumbing it. It's a bit like Cobra Kai. It's thumbing its nose at the message most of the way through it. It's funny. It gives zero shits. It's just there to tell a story that could exist in the Snyderverse or the other DC universe. It doesn't seem to matter. They're name dropping other characters all the time. Um, this is not a spoiler. It's just one of the lines from the Peacemaker's in a situation, and somebody says, have you met the Flash? And he says, yeah, I've met the Flash. No, what's he like? What do you think he's like? He's a complete dick. And it's just lines like that. It's for a massive fan of DC, and any massive fan of DC, there is so many Easter eggs, so much gold to mine that isn't going on in the show. It's chef's kiss, man. You want to talk about positive fandom? I love Peacemaker. Long may it continue.
Something that I notice about Peacemaker that I find incredibly satisfying is that they're not afraid to show nudity. They're
Hmm.
not afraid to show sort of like just the human condition when it comes to sexual situations, which I love. And I think that the vigilante character is a character that I didn't think I was going to like, but I really like that
It's
character.
hilarious, isn't it? Yeah. The Peacemaker is having sex with that woman, and he's going, Frida. It's just ridiculous, but brilliant. Yeah, it's awesome. I
Well,
absolutely can't
like
praise it highly enough.
there's a scene where Peacemaker, and I'm sorry for the spoiler, but there's a scene where Peacemaker kind of breaks into this couple's house and ties them up, and the woman, the wife in the story, is like hitting on him, and
Mm,
the husband is aware of it, and I'm like, well, look at Peacemaker, like he's got this beautiful, he's very attractive guy,
mhm,
and he looks like he would be down for it, and of course, eventually she is with him and with Vigilante at the same time, but you know. Thank you for depicting, a realistic situation. She's gonna notice this guy,
mhm,
he's not just going to walk in and she's gonna be like, yeah, oh, that guy. She's going to be like, oh, hello. Like he's going to grab her attention. I also feel that same way about Vigilante too, because he would grab my attention. And I went to school with so many guys like that character, the Vigilante character.
mhm,
He
mhm.
reminds me of so many boys that I've known through the years. But, honestly, it is something else. When I look at that show and even just the natural human condition, it works for me because those sexual situations are real. This is what we're thinking. This is how, our lives are like, male and female, the male and female gaze, or whatever gaze you want to use. At least it's not something that's wasted and pushed to the side. Mikey Lito says, hey, Paul, in Long Beach, I just looked out the window and snow. Yes, we did get snow, Mikey Lito. I noticed it earlier, but that's okay. And it's just good to see you this morning. Now, looking at the series of Peacemaker, and how really just satisfying it is to, especially like if you have an emptiness, you have an empty feeling, this is going to make you feel so good. And I do feel good from the series. Something that I like about it in regards to those sexual situations is that I think that they are going to grab a lot of attention from the female crowd, and female situations. Apparently, studios are straining to hook women. In an article from Deadline, where they're talking about how Death on the Nile, which was released in Marry Me, were maybe some films that they were hoping would reel in, female fans to watch. I don't know if they were successful in their endeavors, but there seems to be a desire for studios to get that female gaze, and to get the money that, that they would get from us watching it. But I mean, Hallmark seems to be able to do it. Those Hallmark films are just like, they're going strong, Russ. They're going strong. Like they're coming out with 20 films. We have 20 Valentine's films. And even my mother is like, let's see what's on Hallmark. I'm like, okay, yeah, let's see what's on Hallmark. It's like, we don't want to admit that we are watching Hallmark. And Hallmark is kind of, branching out and trying to do things. Yeah, the stories are corny, but we're watching it like they have our eyes. But I can't help but think that if they really wanted to grab our attention, somebody like Peacemaker, in physique, is the lead character from the Reacher series, which has come out and has been renewed for a second season. Now, Russ, have you watched the Reacher series?
I have not, because I've been binging Peacemaker, and also I've been catching up with my batshit incredibly poorly scripted nonsense Titans show, but which I love so much. It makes no sense. We were watching it last night, and why is it there? Why does Paradise Island look like Scotland? I mean, yeah, it's nonsense, but I love it. So no, I'm yet to catch up with Reacher, but I am aware that it's been renewed for a second season. And there you go, Amazon. Oh, look what you did. You followed the law, and everybody loves your show. You're bringing in new fans, and the old fans that have been fans of these books for 10, 20 years, whatever it is, love you. New fans love you because you followed the law. Do that. Do that. It works.
Yeah, it really does. And Jared Snyder, hi, Jared, says the Gilded Age seems targeted towards a female demographic. Yes, it is. And I am watching the Gilded Age, and I'm going to review the Gilded Age on this channel at some point. But yes, it certainly is targeted towards a female demographic. But I don't think it got the same reaction for me personally that I got for the Reacher series. Now, Reacher is you've probably seen the movies that Tom Cruise made of Jack Reacher, which were successful, I believe. And what's really interesting about it is that, Tom Cruise had a version of it. I think he had a series of movies, but now, based more closely upon Lee Child's description of the character, Alan Ritchson plays the lead character. And I have to say that he really does capture what Reacher is like for me. I have the audiobooks by Lee Child. And this particular series, season 1 of Reacher, is truly remarkable, Russ, for many reasons. And I don't know if I can pull up anything. I've been trying to pull up some kind of photos and things of Reacher. Let me just see if I can pick up or pull up a something about it. It's based on Lee Child's books, which are bestsellers. And Lee Child's books, he has about 20 of them, Russ. But if they want to grab women and, kind of like get them to watch a series, Reacher is kind of this series, I think that a lot of women would be watching, because it has this character that I think appeal to men and women. Um, and I think that that's kind of important to have. In my opinion, the character Reacher is a retired military police officer, and
Hmm.
as this, he's kind of like had left the military, and after he was in the military, he ends up in this town, um, where he's gets embroiled in this sort of altercation with people who are doing illegal activity. And
Hmm.
so let me see if I can do this. This is the guy who plays the character, Alan Rickton. I not his.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
he's
I do have
hawking.
it.
He's hawking
Yeah,
Titans.
yeah, this guy. And you mentioned he was in Titans.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you did mention that. But as far as I'm concerned, Russ, you had said that there's this movement towards, one of the things that I noticed is that one of the reviewers of Reacher had said that the series is okay, but it contains way too much violence. Like it's, and I thought to myself, well, the series is an action series that is violent. So, in addition to it being, about trying to eliminate crime and, his this cool persona that this man has, there is a lot of action in it. So if you like action, you will love Reacher, just
Mm.
like the version that Tom Cruise had. But I think they have a lot of nerve to even say that. And you had mentioned that there was this movement towards stepping away from, certain types, archetypes of men, more towards a stronger masculine view of men. And what was that?
Yeah, it was my daughter brought it to my attention. So many years ago, there was a before we had influencers, there was a fitness guy called Ziz who had this Ziz had this sort of personality. He was basically a bodybuilder and was trying to inspire people to be fit and healthy and have the body beautiful. And he was an influencer before there were influencers, if you like. Anyway, he passed away unfortunately because Ziz wasn't really Ziz. He was actually a guy called Aziz, and his real personality was nothing like the guy he was presenting. And it was a time when EDM was big, and the culture that went around EDM and the drugs and all the rest of it. And he took one bit of drugs too many and passed away in Thailand. However, there's a movement that seems to have found a corner of the internet which is called Reject Modernity, Embrace Masculinity. And there's all these like little vignette videos that are going around basically saying that masculinity isn't toxic, and you should train hard and try and make yourself the best you can be and work hard and try and be a good dad, and don't dress up as a baby and and all these other weird kinks that people into that people are sort of indulging in. So it sort of shows you guys dressed up as baby and all this kind of weird stuff that's going on. So no, don't be like that. Be like this. Don't be ashamed of being a man. Don't be ashamed of being masculine. Stand up for yourself. Train hard. All stuff that we kind of used to do, and we're now being sort of told is bad. And I think it's best summed up. A lot of these videos use a quote by Jordan Peterson, and basically he says, these days young men have been told to sheath their masculinity, to sheath their competitive edge, and he says, no, that's wrong. He said, be a beast, be a monster, but learn to control it. That's the
Yeah,
point. Be a
yeah.
beast, be a monster, but control it. Don't be an asshole, but you can still be a strong masculine guy and not be a prick. And I think that's what this movement is all about, from what I've seen of it anyway.
Well, I have to say, I think when everything is said and done, because the show has been out for about a week now, um, or maybe a little bit less than a week.
Mm.
When they do the numbers, they're going to notice that there's a huge female audience, or anyone who likes this character and is a fan of the Lee Child books, is going to love this. And here, Rogue Thinker says there is the right amount of violence. Maybe it could use a bit more, except the last episode, it's a little over the top, but great still.
Now I
You
want to
know,
see it. You've sold it to me, Rogue Thinker.
oh my gosh, Russ, you're gonna love this
I
series.
can't wait.
And it's not just Reacher that's amazing in it, but there's a lot of very interesting twists and turns in it. It is a mystery story. He's trying to solve this crime, trying to figure out what's going on, and there's a lot going on in it, and it's perfect, absolutely perfect for a series like this. I mean, Lee Child has written over 20 books on this one character, and I can see why. This character is
Well,
fascinating.
I think Rickson himself, the actor, and I sort of saw him in Titans, and he seems, and I can imagine this, and I haven't seen Reacher yet. I've seen the Tom Cruise ones. My ex-wife Sally's a massive fan of the books. I mean, she's all over it because he's so good looking and all the rest of it. But they've picked the perfect guy in this actor, because for me, he's the kind of guy I could hang out with down the pub. We could have a couple of beers. We'd watch the football. He'd be your great mate. But he's also really, really dangerous and really, really hard and really, really handsome and really, really amazing. And he's all things to all people. But he's so likable. The actor himself, even in Titans, the guy, he's just likable. And there's something about him, that X factor again. We were talking about Van Damme. There's just something about that guy, his face, his mannerisms, his way of delivering lines. You want to like him, and that goes a long way, I think, perhaps to the success of the show, in that he's not just about macho and beating the crap out of people. You can see behind his eyes there is this caring guy that could be your husband or your dad or your mate or whatever it is. And I think that's probably what the actor brings to that character, which is why men and women, young and old, are sort of flocking to this show, because he's all things for all people in that particular role.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that he does embody all of that. You mentioned that he's been in several series. You mentioned he was in Titans. Someone had said that he was also in, I think, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Um, Rogue Thinker says, big, attractive, strong guy, beautiful, strong young woman supporting character. Yes. And another strong supporting character, make a great team, strongly recommended. I'm assuming he's talking about Reacher. Um,
Yeah.
and Mike Alito has a question, which I'm going to ask in a second. But, I think that if they want to get those female viewers, they need to do more things like this. And, honestly, I think that Peacemaker is an example of it as well. Of course, there's comedy in that. It's meant to be, a bit shocking and entertaining at points, a different approach. But, Mike, the Cena, actor, he's an attractive man, and we are going to notice that, and that's one of the ways to pull us in. This is something that I think is very interesting. It is very important to have elements like that in a show, and even in Peacemaker, there, like I said, there's sex in that. There's sex in Reacher. There is
Hmm.
actual. There's a shower scene. Like there's there's a lot of that in it. So, if you like it, if you like that sort of thing, you will love Reacher. I just love it so much. So I recommend it to anybody who likes action, especially. I was shocked when I saw that article that it said, yeah, it's a great show, but it's too violent. And I'm like, you do realize this is action, right? So
Yeah.
I just can't get over it, Russ. Mike Alito says, I'm curious, how do you hosts feel about book series that are turned over from one writer to another?
I'm trying to think of an example. There's Dune, or Dune, as Americans would say it. That was turned over. I'm not a huge fan of that one. To be fair, I haven't actually read much of it. Or maybe I did read it back in the day. I can't remember. It was the 80s. Um, don't know. I'm trying to think of something that I've read that's been handed over. I mean, you can't really count Tolkien, because that was just his son re-editing his original works. Um, what are you thinking of, Mikey Leto? Would be the I'd bounce it back to you and ask you, what are you referencing? Help me out.
Yes, please, Michaelito. If there's a specific book, Darren Hoyt says like the Tom Clancy books. Um, yeah, it's tough when the person passes away and then they want to finish a book. Um, I'm not quite sure whether it necessarily matters. It depends on where, how many books were put out initially. And there are some people I know for the Dune series. There's some people who only like the original ones that were written by the original author, and they'll
Hmm.
stick with those. And I understand that.
Mm.
Um, uh, the other thing too is that I think Mikey Lito is saying he's talking about Lee Child's. He asked because the Reacher series is being turned over to Child's brother. Oh, okay.
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 Didn't
Well,
know that, man.
I
I
didn't
guess my
either.
my answer to your question is, well, as long as it's good. The only example I can think of literarily is David. One of my favorite authors, a guy called David Gemmell, passed away some years ago now, and he died when he was writing the last half of his last trilogy, and his wife completed it based on his notes, and that was fine. It was a perfect ending to that trilogy and a sad end to David Gemmell's career. No, nevertheless, um, again, Mikey Lee, I think it just comes down to respecting what has gone before and not. Yes, you can do your own thing, but doing your own thing doesn't necessarily mean trampling all over, destroying, and spitting in the face of what's come before. So as long as you're a writer that's taking on a property that people want you to, you've got this job, you've got to take it on. You have to respect what your predecessor has done, and not try to make it your own into too much of an overt and disrespectful way. That would be my guess.
I agree with you. This is something to think about. I mean, I can honestly say that when it comes to Jane Austen, she had a book that had not been finished. I believe that the book was called Bridgerton, and someone else finished it. And I'm not fond of what they did with it.
Hmm.
But that's just my personal opinion of it. It doesn't mean that the adaptation and show that they did isn't good, but I have a feeling it would be different if she had finished it. I believe that's the book that she had not finished, and they decided to go ahead and finish that one for her, but it doesn't feel the same to me. So, it is touch and go. Of course, we're talking about an author from 200 years ago versus somebody, more in modern times. I think is a greater opportunity to kind of finish a more modern piece of work
I can see
when
the
we have
chat
so much.
chat flying in now, aren't they? Yeah, we got Tarzan was turned over. Doc Smith was written by other people as well. Obviously James Bond. They did recently. I say recently, it's probably about 10 years ago now. Another famous author did James Bond, a new James Bond book. I seem to remember. Um, there we go. Wheel of Time, Sherlock Holmes. Thank you, chat. Like you're really coming in. Well, Sherlock Holmes has been pretty well done. James Bond. The movies are different to the books nowadays, and the movies are still great. Like love them or hate them. I like some of them, don't like some of them so much. Um, Tarzan. I had all of those books when I was a kid. They all had black. They all had black covers. I used to get from W.H. Smith. They were all black, and they had the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I can't remember what the last one was, but I had them all, and I read them as a kid, and I absolutely loved them. I thought they were brilliant.
No, this is it is something to think about how authors decide to sort of wrap up stories they're receiving work from someone else. And you know I you know, I think there are going to be some stories that people are always going to want to adapt and make into movies. But you're right, there is something to think about when it comes to an original work and trying to finish that original work as perhaps as you think that the original writer would have intended. I think
Mm.
honestly, I wouldn't want to have to do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I had someone approach me a couple of years ago. Actually, they wanted to write a story set in the same world that my books had taken place in. Not in, obviously, because it was ancient Rome, so it was the world as it was, but like using some of the characters and situations there. I had no problem with it. I thought I was actually rather flattered that they even asked me. But yeah, I think I actually would have thought that would have been cool actually if she'd have actually finished it. So yeah, it's all right, but in my book.
Yes, and here's another one. Megas of Vicanti says if they did a straight adaptation remakes of Fleming's novels alongside current Bond, they could get some mileage out of it. People have said this before. I think that makes a good point. And Mike Alito continues to say the Vince Flynn books would make good film content in the right hands for sure.
Anything would,
So
Mikey Lee. Oh, this is the thing, isn't it? It's the right hands with the right intent. I think that's the point. And to address Megas there, yeah, absolutely. I've always thought, Megas, that now that Daniel Craig has done this continual saga of 5 movies over a period, I think 15 year or something like that. My personal opinion, let's just go back to the 70s or the 80s. We've got enough money and enough CGI now that it's not going to cost a fortune to make these sets. Just put it back when he could get away with being himself and not make James Bond try to fit. because someone's going to get offended, right? So let's just put him back in 1981 or something like that, when he can go around being the guy that we all love him to be. That's my thought on it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, with everything that's been said, and just to wrap up the Reacher
Mm.
situation, and I promise you I'm not just going to Reacher because I love it, but I do love it.
Because I can't wait to see
it
it, Aram. I can't wait to see it. It's just there's so much done. I've got other work to. I've been working on
You
other
will
projects.
love it, Russ. You're gonna be like, oh yeah. You're like, yeah. Like there's gonna be so many like fist pumping moments that you're gonna love. Um, it turns out that it's been renewed for a second season. Shocker? No, not a
Hmm.
shocker. It's number one on the network. I think it's Amazon. And in a recent article, it says um, this Jack Reacher is going to be big. It's a New York Times article, and it says these are not my words. This is another writer. It says fans of the Reacher books were underwhelmed when Tom Cruise was picked to play the hulking hero in the two movies. A new series with Alan Ritchson may remedy that. And quote from Jenny Davidson, who is a comparative literature professor at Columbia University and a Reacher superfan, she says that the character is a perfect female fantasy. The man we want to be with, of course, but also the man we want to be someone with no domestic ties, none of the burdens of emotional labor, none of the vulnerability that we all really do have in our ordinary day to day lives. And I think that, that definitely captured, that feeling, of this character. And Richardson does it. Like this is a character he made his own. But I just had to read that because yeah, maybe he is a female fantasy. Maybe he is, but why not? Why can't we have some female fantasy stuff in there? And
You
for some
you
men, maybe it's the
totally
male
should.
fantasy.
You totally. I remember my ex-wife said to me, we were talking about this very thing many years ago now, and she was actually talking about Daniel Craig, James Bond, and how now they were going to, they were doing this, they were doing that with him, and people were criticizing James Bond for being a misogynist dinosaur and all that kind of thing. And Sal said to me, and I'll have to paraphrase, but basically she said, "No, I want to meet James Bond in a bar. I want him to seduce me. I want to be taken up, him to take me up to my room and do whatever he's going to do. And then I want him to jump out the window and go and save the world. I don't want to wake up and see James Bond wearing my dressing gown, holding my breakfast. That's not what I want out of James Bond. Okay, he's a fantasy for us in the same for us in terms of ladies, the same way Angelina Jolie is for guys, or Pam Anderson, whoever your poison happens to be. And I get it, and there's nothing wrong with that. Give the ladies what they want. If they want a bit of that, I'm there for it.
Well, thank you for the support, Russ. And Mikey Lito says, "Hey, do I look female?" For anyone who loves and can appreciate an attractive man, how's that, Mikey Lito? For those of us who like attractive men,
There we go.
um, but honestly, excuse me, Mikey Lito. And I were talking about it, I think in a chat or another time about Reacher. And I
Mm.
told him, you're going to love it. It's going to be something that you're going to remember. But I also think that there is, in addition to him being a very attractive man, there is a certain satisfaction you get when he's able to kind of right these wrongs in the story. And that's the payoff that we want to see in a show that's supposed to be entertaining. We want to see that payoff. We want to see him get the baddies. We want to see him, make things right for everybody, and he does that. He
Mm.
delivers that. And it's really quite exciting to see it come to such perfect fruition for me.
Well, he's a
Alan,
hero, isn't he? He's a hero.
he
That's
is,
what it's what he
yes,
does. He's a
yes.
hero. Great.
And
He's
he
not a
doesn't have any
superhero. He's a hero.
yes, he doesn't have any superpowers. He's a guy. He gets hurt sometimes, like he's a legitimate person with a realistic individual who I could see this person existing in real life. Now, I don't know whether I'm assuming Lee Child might have based the character on himself, but it's very interesting to look at the gentleman's point of view. I also think that it's nice to kind of get something from a man's point of view in a character like this, because he does have the desire to make things right, and women, love that. I think a lot of people love it, but I
Mm.
can't speak for men, but I know that as a woman, I love seeing him wanting to make things right. Like when he says, I'm gonna find out who's behind this, and I'm gonna crush them to the ground. And it's like, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of that, and just that he also has a certain level of freedom that I really like.
Hmm.
Um, so that's very interesting. And Rogue Thinker mentioned something that you mentioned as well, Russ, and I promise I'm not going to talk about Reacher much more, because I could talk about this thing all day. That he played Aquaman in Smallville, and would have made a better Aquaman in the movie. That's interesting. More King Arthur, less Khal Drogo. That's very interesting. I would not have been disappointed if he were chosen as Aquaman. Rogue Thinker. I can't even believe I'm saying that. Not that I don't still love Jason Momoa, mind you, but I would not have been disappointed if he were chosen to play Aquaman. And you mentioned that he was in Titans. I think that this series is really going to boost Alan Ritchson in many more ways, and I hope that this is going to make people aware, or Hollywood aware of, maybe not Hollywood, but maybe some of the streaming services, to invest in more things like this, because it's absolutely enjoyable. And Michael Lito is recommending Bosch,
Hmm.
which is
Yeah,
also
I
on.
haven't seen it.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that is somewhat more active show. Uh, but what I was going to say, Russ, is we've discussed all our topics for the day, and I did want to ask you if there's anything else that you want to share with everyone that's on your mind, any concerns and stories that we have not covered that you have comments on, or anything at all.
Now there was something, and I had it right at the beginning of the show, and I didn't write it down, and now it's gone completely out of my mind. And of course, as soon as the show finishes this afternoon, I'm going to go, oh shit, that's what I wanted to say, because there's a lot of stuff going on at the moment. Um, but just to jump back a little bit at one of the comments about Rickson being Aquaman, unless Khal Drogo. Yeah, but I think that in the Snyderverse, they were Superman and that, and Wonder Woman herself. They're kind of kingly in their own way, and I think that's why we got Aquaman being the bit of the sort of drunken uncle dude bro surfer guy. I think that it would have come across a little bit too po-faced if they'd all been like that. A bit like the Super Friends cartoon from the 70s, where you could just swap Aquaman's dialogue with Batman's or with Green Lanterns or whatever, and they'd all sound the same. So I kind of liked what they did with Aquaman in Justice League. I thought he was great. But I get where
Yeah.
you're coming from. Like as a standalone Aquaman that didn't have anything to do with that, then maybe the more kingly approach might have been the way to go. But I think with that ensemble, I think well, I'm always going to say that I'm a Zachariah, and I'm going to leap to his defense. And oh
No,
yeah, that's what I
no,
was going
it's
to say.
fine.
That's
Yes.
what I was going to say. So
Yeah.
DC have thrown a bit of a rock in the pond of the Snyder Bros. They just now released a 60-second uh, trailer teaser of all the projects they've got coming in 2022.
Oh.
And it's got the Batman, it's got the Flash in there, and Black Adam, and a number of other things that they're doing. All these movies that are coming out. I think a bit of Batgirl, um, and it looks dope as fuck, to quote Peacemaker from the Suicide Squad. So these films, people have been like, oh, I'm not sure, but now we're getting a proper look at Black Adam. It looks brilliant. Doctor Fate, Pierce Brosnan, James Bond is playing Doctor Fate in it, and the costume looks absolutely fantastic. It's the antithesis of what you were saying about Lord of the Rings. They all look the dog bollocks in this. They really do look absolutely superb. Um, and a lot of the Snyder Bros are all sort of saying, "No, fuck the DCU. We want Snyder." Everyone's now sort of going, "Well, actually, no, this actually looks pretty good." Um, so if that was Warner Brothers' intent, they've certainly landed pretty well, and they've landed well with some of the most vehement Snyder Bros. So there's a guy online that I love called the Truth 31, and if you think I swear a lot, I've got nothing on that guy. Um, a lot of people are coming out with support of this. No, nobody's saying we don't want the Snyderverse back, but given what they've given us, just in these little tiny, teeny tinies, well, okay, this looks good. This does not look as shit as what we feared it was going to be. So
Right.
let's see some more of it. It's the Flash, isn't it? The Flash is the one that has Zachalites like myself. We're very concerned. But now we have Ezra Miller posting a tweet where Ben Affleck's going, yeah, it's my last time as Batman, and he's done a Heath Ledger on it. It's got ha 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 written all over it. And of course, some people are going, yeah, he's happy that Ben Affleck's out. I don't think Ezra Miller is that kind of character. It's almost like, yeah, the joke's on us. We don't know what's coming down the pipe. I am sure that Zaslav and Discovery have already been on to Zack Snyder. The numbers for the Snyderverse speak for themselves. And I think, guys, that's what streaming is for. This is what it's for. Do that. Please do that. And we'll love you for it. We will give you our money. We will buy it, and we will buy the box set, and we will buy the toys and the posters and the this and the that. Just again, respect the fans, and they'll love you for it. Look at Reacher. This is exactly that we bookend this conversation. I think I mentioned this earlier on. They respected the law, and everybody loves the show. And this is
Yes.
not what they're doing with Lord of the Rings. So yeah, so back to DC. The 60-second DC teaser trailer was absolutely fantastic because people saw the stuff they released at DC Fandom, and that was pretty underwhelming. But myself included, I watched. I thought, okay, this is great. But to get the Truth 31 on side, that's something that's not Snyder, because he's a proper Snyder bro, and won't have anything said. He's like, no, I'm on board with this, but we still want the Snyderverse. And why can't we have both? That's what I wanted to. Yeah, Craig, it does, man. It does look real good. Zack Snyder is not the be all and end all. No, he's not. And I think that's rather the point. You can have both. But I think to start a story off like they did with Snyder, and then cut his legs off with Batman versus Superman, then use the tragedy as an excuse to push him off the project, all these kinds of things.
Yeah, that
Let the
wasn't
man
cool.
let the man complete his vision. That's all I'm saying.
Hmm. And Rogue Thinker has a comment. Let's hope the DC starts bringing it. I have no hope for Flash, but some of the other things I hope will be good. Well, that is good.
Hmm. Or Rogue, I think Flash is going to be the one, isn't it? If that erases the Snyderverse, you're going to have millions and millions and millions and millions of people turning their back on it. I think that they did an estimate of the hardcore Snyder bros, of which I'm one of them. There's about 10. It's about a 10 million strong movement, and those people are going to lose their shit if they erase it. I don't think they will.
Now,
But
Russ, last week I sent you, and we were talking about this briefly. Excuse me. Last week I sent you physical media sales. And I have a feeling it still hasn't changed. And you can actually see this is not the way that you normally do things, but I have no choice. I have to show it like this, where it says the 5 UHD Blu-ray sellers for the week. It's The Punisher, No Time to Die, Dune, Zack Snyder's Justice League, and Shang-Chi. And these might be 4K sellers for week ending. Yeah, top 5 UHD Blu-ray sellers for the week ending, and that was last week. I have a feeling it hasn't changed very much.
no, that was last week. When was it released? It's been released. It's been out for months. I've had it.
Yes.
I haven't got a 4K player. I bought the Snyder Cut on 4K because I'm that much of a Snyder bro. It's still up there. It's been up there for months. Um, so what's Mikey? I don't want Man of Steel 2 with Henry Cavill if JJ Abrams is going to produce it. No, Mikey, he's not going anywhere near Man of Steel 2. He's doing the Ta-Nehisi Coates African American version of Superman, and then there's another one he's involved with, Val Zod, Black Kryptonian Superman on HBO Max. Although Scooper Mikey Sutton is saying none of those projects are going ahead. That again, they've listened to people on social media lost their shit when they announced that why are you doing this? Why can't we have Henry Cavill back? And I think that might have put the scuppers on JJ Abrams, but I can't confirm that. That's a Mikey Sutton thing.
Yeah, that's a good question. I hope not that JJ Abrams won't have anything to do with it. Honestly, this is just I agree with him on that. And we have another comment about Craig Spencer. He says, if it seems if the Flash movie bombs, DC can recontextualize that the DCEU via the Justice Society in Black Adam. What do you think, Russ?
Potentially, and I think that this is the whole point. And so somebody earlier on said, Snyder isn't the be all and end all. I agree. I just think he should be allowed to finish what he started. Okay, because look, none of those guys are getting any younger, right? Henry Cavill's nearly 40 now, as it is. We need to get cracking on this Snyderverse thing. Will the Flash movie bomb? No, because use yourself as your own yardstick. I think millions of people are going to go and see it. I think the backlash will be, Craig, if they, like I said, if they erase the Snyderverse, you're going to have millions of pissed off people. But you're right. I think they can use that as a jumping off point for the JSA. But it almost seems, why would you do that when you've got the biggest heroes in the world? You've got Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and yet you seem to wanting to get rid of Superman and Batman and not have them for whatever reason. Those are the rumors, but I cannot believe that any businessman is so stupid to have these properties on his hands and then go, or his or her hands, and just go, oh no, we're going to kill them off. We're going to go with this new Justice League. But Justice Society, give me a Power Girl TV show. I'll be all over it, man. I think that could be, do Power Girl in the same way that you do Peacemaker. I think it'd be fucking hilarious. I'd love to see that. I think, I know she's not in this particular one, but you're missing a trick if you don't have a Power Girl TV show in the vein of Peacemaker. That would be my take. But yeah, good point.
Yeah, and Megas of Akanti is asking me, the mod on the Twitch side. I'm the mod on the Twitch side. I promise you, Megas of Akanti, I'm going to go ahead and look and see which comment is held. I couldn't see the comment, so I apologize for that. But most of your comments have been coming through Twitch. So I'm not quite sure what was held up. And, please go ahead and try and push it through again if you don't mind. Rogue Thinker says, The Punisher, #1, haha, after Marvel tried to alter the character into a lame ninja, Marvel floppy comics are committed to self-deletion. Yeah, The Punisher really let us down in the TV series in season 2, but I still love this character. Like, I want Bernthal to come back and kind of do it, the right way. So I think that they could just revive it and forget about that second season and just give us, the Punisher that we deserve. What do you think, Russ?
Yeah, I loved it. Loved him. Thought he was absolutely fantastic. Thought Netflix was the perfect place for it, actually. And the Daredevil show really pissed me off. I thought it was like the fucking best show I'd seen up to date. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. I remember talking to Sam, who my daughter's a massive DC nerd, the same as myself. I said, Jesus Christ, this could have been Batman Year One. This could have been the Batman Year One show. Why couldn't we have that? Yeah, I thought they smashed it, and I thought Berthnell was brilliant. Charlie Cox, brilliant. Don't know what Marvel are going to do with it though, because you're not going to have that hard edge that the Netflix shows had, which I think those characters kind of made their own. So don't know. I missed the first half. Was there a discussion of the Defenders leaving Netflix and being reacquired by Marvel? No. It's literally just sort of come up in conversation now, Mikey Leto, because someone mentioned Punisher in the chat there. And yeah, Craig, what you meant by bomb is bad backlash. Yeah, as I said, I think if they do what people fear, then yes, there'll be a massive backlash and shit will hit the fan.
Yeah. And it's very interesting. And I know it's getting towards the end of our broadcast this morning, but what I was going to say is that, Russ, you and I definitely want to start to do some kind of into the Snyderverse
I know we do. I
series.
know it's me. It's because I have a job and writing to do outside of it, and watching these. We still haven't finished Underworld, and that is completely my fault. It's just I've been taken up by this script project over here, and it's got red pen on it
Wow.
and stuff like that. So I've got stuff because they're going to pay me for it, so I've kind of got to do it. So yes, I apologize. I will try to get to it. When I'm rich and famous, then I'll have more time for these things. How much credit do you give to the rumor that they would kill off the Snyderverse and put Batgirl? So I can't imagine that they'd be so stupid as to do that. But then I can't imagine they'd be so stupid as to piss all over Lord of the Rings. Yet they seem to have, the generic they seem to, think that's all fine. But in what world are you going to go, no, we're going to go with this Justice League with these characters that nobody particularly cares about, because, well, not that they don't care about, but they're sidekick characters, they're spin-offs of the main people. I think it worked well with the Supergirl TV show because it talked about different things until it disappeared into a vortex of nonsense. I can't imagine Rogue that they do it. I think that the Restore the Snyderverse movement is very, very vocal. If you're a guy who's a profit orientated guy who's coming in there with a new broom, okay, your mission, David Zaslav, should you choose to accept it, which he has, is to make HBO Max a viable competitor to Netflix and Amazon. You can't get rid of your biggest selling properties. Batman is the only DC comic that's selling at the moment.
Right.
Real Batman, not pretend fake Batman and Son of Batman. Actual Batman. So to me, could be a bit of fear mongering. Grace Randolph is saying one thing, Mikey Sutton is saying something else. They're literally saying the complete opposites of it. So according to Mikey Sutton, Cavill's in the Flash, and it's not just him on TV. He's shot his scenes already. Affleck isn't going anywhere, but Affleck isn't doing anything unless it's with Snyder or he has complete creative control. And negotiations going on about that at the moment. According to Mikey Sutton, Grace Randolph says not. Mikey Sutton says, yeah. Who do you want to believe? I've got my confirmation bias. I know who I want to believe. But Affleck had such a shit experience with Joss Whedon. He was done with it. He publicly announced he was done with it. Zack Snyder said, hey, well, will you do this one last thing with Jared Leto, who everybody else said was done, and now that they've come back. So I feel in the right circumstances, Affleck will be back to do his thing, because him saying, oh, I'm done with big franchises. Yeah, well, what's his name? Andrew Garfield said he was done with, I'm not in Spider-Man. I'm not in Spider-Man. I'm not, oh, yeah, I am in Spider-Man. So we will see.
Yes, and we did have another question from Magus of Akanti. We actually have two more, and then we're going to have to wrap up the show. But
Okay.
he wanted to know if anime was in the panelist wheelhouse and if they were hyped for a show that I can't read adaptation coming out. Look for that in the automated cache, and I am looking for it. I'm looking on it on my phone, and I don't know whether I can find it. But I promise you that I will. If I can't find it today, Magus of Akanti, I will look for it when I get off of the computer and my phone, and I have a few machines running at the same time. So I apologize for my limitations.
It's not
But
my wheelhouse, Megas. I'm sorry. I don't really follow it.
well, it's mine. I follow anime. I'm reviewing a series called Arcane on this channel.
Hmm.
I'm hyped for any kind of anime. So the answer is yes. And you also go on to ask, well, the DC Comics universe has a multiverse the same way Marvel has one. Matter of fact, the DC multiverse is relied upon and set in stone more so than the Marvel one.
Absolutely, absolutely. And they tried to put that to bed in 1985, didn't they, with Crisis on Infinite Earths? But the multiverse is so rich, and it does give you so much more opportunity to tell different stories, which is what the Snyder Bros are holding on to. Like, we know, the acolytes know that nothing's going to stop the train that is the DC cinematic universe. It's going to go on, and it's been established. What we're holding on to is, well, there's a multiverse now. We can have our Batman and Superman. We can have our Wonder Woman over there, and she can go off and do Wonder Woman 1984 in the real continuity. I think they're trying to wipe that one out in the Flash. It was one of the rumors I heard. But you've got a multiverse, so you can have Tyler Hoechlin, you can have Henry Cavill, you can have oh my God, what's her name? The Supergirl actress. I'm so sorry. Um, you can have it all, and people now understand that you can have it all. And the argument always used to be was, oh no, people are being confused. Well, how many Batman have we got? How many Superman have we got? I'm not confused. I know if I'm watching Superman and Lois, I'm not watching Henry Cavill, and the vast majority of people are not confused. Even casuals, not super nerds, are going to say, yeah, well, that's a TV show, and Henry Cavill's the guy in the movies. It's obvious. We had Indiana Jones and young Indiana Jones. People aren't thick. So yeah, I think we can have it. And yes, he did, Megas. Grant Morrison is an absolute genius.
And Magus of Akanti was asking about a show called Bastard.
Yes, yes.
I'm not familiar with it, but I promise you, Magus of Akanti, I certainly will look into it. It sounds amazing. I sure hope it has a lot of action. And I assure you that we will definitely get into it. And our last comment for today: anyone watching Blade Runner Black Lotus on Adult Swim? Have you been watching that,
I need
Russ?
to tune into it. I have been remiss about that. I want to check it out, but as I said, I've just got lots of side projects going on at the moment, and it's kind of like, do I sit here and write something that I'm going to get paid to write, or do I sit and watch Peacemaker? I'm going to watch Peacemaker, but that that means I haven't had time for Reacher and I haven't finished Titans, and so I need to get to these things.
Well, I'm the same way. And thank you, Craig Spencer. Thanks for reading. He says, thank you for reading my comments. I signed up for your channel last night after seeing you on R&B's channel. And I've seen you on Lael's channel. Consider me a dedicated subscriber. Well, thank you, Craig, for your kind words. I'm certainly glad to have you here. And I really appreciate you all giving comments. We have to wrap up the show. But Russ, where can people find you?
I'm not really on social media. I have a website which is like a million years out of date at russellwhitfield.com, and you can drop me a line at contact@russellwhitfield.com if you want to shout at me about the things that I've said on the show today. But yeah, not much of a social media presence for me, I'm afraid.
Well,
Where
you
can
can
we
always
find you, RM?
you can
How long?
always
How long we got, guys?
well, obviously I have my Positive Fandom YouTube channel, which many of you are watching, but I also have Positive Fandom on Twitch, which some of you are also watching on, where I do my reviews, my live streams, and more. On Monday nights, you can find me on Toxic Femininity with Lorraine Creel, Nina Infinity, and Mandy Summers. On Wednesdays and Thursdays, you can find me often on the 1/6 Scale Man Network on Say What or Uncivilized Scoundrels. On Friday afternoons, you can find me on Midnight's Edge at 12 p.m. Eastern with Andre and Tom and Cameron Pasha. On Friday nights, you can find me on the Burnett Network with Robert Meyer Burnett streaming. And obviously you can find me here on Sunday Brunch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with Russ doing our Sunday Brunch show. But I'm also have shows coming out on the Burnett Network, PGS All Stars and PGS Reviews that are coming up as well. And I did just want to thank everybody for tuning in. I also want to thank Tom Junior Jackson, my collaborator and moderator, for everything. I certainly do appreciate it. And Russ, thank you for always joining me on these wonderful Sunday brunch mornings and for you afternoon, where we get to talk about all the pop culture stuff we love. And I so appreciate it. And thank you to the chat, everybody. And thank you, Megas of Akanti, Mikey Lito Tobor, everybody who is in the chat today. Enjoy the Super Bowl to those of you who are watching it. And always remember, as you go through your day-to-day things going on, please remember to always be kind.
Thanks, guys. Bye bye.